I really did want to talk about waking up exhausted. And I find this is especially true for business owners. We do tend to wake up exhausted. And I say business owners, let's face it, I'm a mom. And even when I wasn't working in my business in earnest, because there were those times where I just was not, I would still wake up exhausted. So, whereas I typically speak just to business owners, this is true of everyone. And that feeling of exhaustion tends to keep going and get even more magnified around this time of the year, around any time where there's extra stuff to do. Because let's be honest, you're barely managing what's going on in life anyway. And then we get to heap on holidays, or then we get to heap on a launch, or then we get to heap on, oh, we're setting up to go on vacation, or whatever it is, whatever that extra stressor is. Now we're even more exhausted. Now even more energy is drained. Let me know in the comments if you can feel that, because this is a huge issue. And it becomes to the point where it's like an ongoing trauma. It's like instead of, we're going 90 to nothing, every once in a while, like when the holidays hit, or when there's a birthday, or when there's a launch, or when there's some major event, right? Just those kind of times in our lives, instead it becomes an everyday thing, right? And the whole issue, or at least the thing I see as an issue, is these one-off times of waking up exhausted should not become the norm, right? This should not be the norm in your life. It is a wake-up call that something needs to be done differently, right? A different whatever has to happen. Now, I'm going to share my story about this, but I just want you to think, if you're waking up exhausted, if you're having, I was thinking as I was writing the email that went out to my list today about waking up exhausted, and immediately the song 9 to 5 started.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and
Being coffee. I'm like, I'm not a coffee drinker. I do like hot tea, but I rarely drink hot tea even in the morning. And it's like knowing that about myself, I was like, how am I going to start moving past this? I'm always tired, right? Now, mind you, I am from the South and I love sweet tea with a white hot passion. So it's not that I don't drink tea. Please don't get me wrong, but I don't do that first thing in the morning necessarily. So something else had to give.
Something's gotta give, something's gotta give, something's gotta give.
Right? Since, I actually really hate the smell of even coffee. So I'm not your Starbucks person. I digress. But what I really wanted to get across is, what are you doing? How are you going to mitigate that? How are you actually going to deal with it on a long-term basis so that waking up exhausted happens every once in a while, not the norm? So for me, what happened was I realized I was having such a hard time, and this you might see yourself here too. I was having such a hard time falling asleep, staying asleep, right? Much less waking up exhausted, which I think I just assumed was normal. At some point in my head, waking up exhausted felt normal, like this is what people do. But the not being able to fall asleep and stay asleep didn't seem so normal. None of that's normal. All right, so what I did was I went to the doctor because I needed to sleep. Right? Your body needs to sleep every night. It does its own cleanup process at night while you're asleep, right? Especially if you're spinal fluid. So, and clean up and repair. That's why I should mention both. Clean up and repair process. So if you're not sleeping, those things aren't happening. And other stuff starts to break down in your body. Much less, your mind and your soul, right? You need to sleep. And so I went to the doctor. I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And he's like, I got just the thing for you. And he gave me a prescription. I picked it up. And, and he's like, it'll take a few days to kick in, but you take it every day. And he gave me the information. And I took it religiously. And in a few days, lo and behold, I could go to sleep at night and stay asleep. It was amazing. And I was waking up and I felt pretty okay. I wasn't waking up exhausted anymore, right? I wasn't waking up exhausted. And so I decided to look at, because it was, what I got was like probably some generic, I didn't know what it was. And so when I looked it up, what it was, thinking it's going to give me some information about the medication and how it works with sleep, it was actually anti-anxiety, right? It was an anxiety medication. I thought, I don't have anxiety. And okay, maybe I did have anxiety. All right, but it's not like I was taking this medication and seeing a therapist. I was just taking the medication. And so at that moment I knew I had to do something different. A change had to be made, or I would be right back there all over again with what he called dysregulated sleep, right? I would have dysregulated sleep again, and I didn't want that. It actually took me, whereas I was sleeping better, it literally took me about a month and a half, 2 months to get my sleep cycle back. Just something resembling normal. Normal for me. Everyone's normal is a little different. So what did I do? I learned some new things, some new habits, right, that I could put into place, some what I call guardrails. I taught my brain, when I do these things, it's time for shutdown mode. It's time to let me sleep, right? And so I'm happy to share some of those things with you. And in the comments, I want to know some of yours. What are some of the things you do? What is your like sleepy time rituals, I call them, to put your brain in shutdown mode so you can go to sleep? Mine became, of course, about an hour or so before bed, no electronics. I did have like music playing, which actually had a white noise machine. I would spray my pillows with lavender. So it's like my brain would, it'd smell lavender, and I'm like, oh, it must be sleepy time. And my head's on a pillow, and the white noise waves or whatnot were going. And that would put me to sleep. Eventually, it moved from the white noise machine to an app on my phone. I'm a big proponent of Calm. I love it. And it's funny because, quite honestly, the main thing I listen to on Calm is background forest music. I think it's called Evening Crickets, right? That's like, my brain's like, oh, it's still sleepy time. That's on. let's go back to sleep. And then I started getting into the sleep time stories for children because, I don't know, it's something nice about being read to at night. So those are the things that I do now in order to sleep. Those are what I call the guardrails of what I do. So it's like this ritualized way of being. And I've added different things to this over time that have helped me. There's something about unloading what's in your brain, right? Your mind wants to help you out so very much. And this is one of those reasons we get exhausted in life and in business. We're trying to hold everything in our heads. You're literally running with too many tabs open on your, like too many tabs on your computer, you got too many tabs open in your brain. I mean, I was one of those people, not only did I have too many tabs open in one window, I'd have several windows of, a bazillion tabs open. Poor computer, poor brain, because it was a mirror for what I was doing in my mind. Running with all these open tabs all the time. Wondering why I was exhausted, why my batteries literally were drained. So I had to figure out a method for closing down those tabs, for capturing information. I have several tools that I use with my clients to capture, but I'm at the very least just write it all down in a journal, right? I have some other tools and other ways of working with it. But right now, what I want you to remember is just write it all down so you don't have to remember, so you can close the tab, right? Your brain will close the tab as soon as it knows that you've held that information somewhere where you can go back and access it. That doesn't have to remember. It doesn't have to like grind in that neural pathway, right? Because that's what it's trying to do with when it has all those tabs open. It's trying to grind in that neural pathway because it's afraid to forget, or it'll forget, however you want to look at that, right? So make sure that that you've written it down so your brain's not having to do that. And that will help you close tabs, brings your energy back up, right? That's what's so important, to bring your energy back up so that you can do other things during the day. And your brain's happy to point to the place where you've been writing down all the information, trust me, to go back and reclaim it, because it didn't have to have all the tabs open, all of them open, right? So to me, it's like, figure out what are those guardrails that you're going to put in. They're going to help pop you out of exhaustion. What are those rituals that you're going to do when you're going to sleep? And I didn't think about this too much later, when you're waking up. There are things to do at both sides and during the middle of the day. We're not going to get into all of that right now, but just know you've got to put in those guardrails to help yourself do better, to help yourself take those breaks that you need and to recharge. So, right, the major recharge happens overnight, but there's recharges that also need to happen during the day. And there's a way to orchestrate your day so that can happen. And a lot of that I talk about during Soulful Reset. Part of Soulful Reset is to really get down all the things that we'll learn during the event. And this is just one piece, is really talking about how to bounce out of this exhaustion and really back into flow with life again, right? The whole event is about getting your nights, weekends, and holidays back. But part of that is, even if you get them back, you don't want to be exhausted, right? We want to go and live with as much vigor as possible. And to have all of that in place means to have those guardrails in. So the first day of the event, we get really clear about the things that you actually want to do, right? That you actually want to do. So many people were living a life that someone else has prescribed for us. And then we start in day 1 and day 2, letting go of things and learning some other tools and techniques that will help us start living the life that we want to live and having the business we want to have, right? And really getting all those things together. But it's nice to have all the information. It's even nice to make a plan. But if you don't have those guardrails in place, then the chances of you following through are not good. So that's why we spend that third day really talking about all the little guardrails that you can put in place so that you can follow through, so that you can really make a change, really transform your life, so that not only do you get through these holidays, these winter holidays that we all have different ones, right? All these winter holidays, but also to moving forward to get through 2023 and 2024 and 2025 and so forth, living differently, living really more abundantly, because you're really enjoying life again. You're really out there living, you're really present with your family, with your friends, with those causes that you really believe in, because that's part of living too. And, to me, owning a business means that I get to impact people's lives. But I can't really, truly impact someone's life if I'm giving from an empty well. So I need to make sure that I've filled myself up. And that's really what Soulful Reset is about at its core, is filling yourself up so that you're being the leader of your life. And then turning around and being the leader of your business, your movement, your passion. All right, my loves, that's what I've got. So remember, if you have any questions, any comments, please share them below. And with that, I say peace, joy, love. See you.